Welcome, Willow community. I'm Dr. Abate. I'm the English teacher in the middle school, and I have to tell you before I go any further, I am way out of my comfort zone. I don't like being recorded. My voice sounds funny. My eyes are squinty. This is not what I want to be doing. However, I know how important it is for these morning gatherings to continue, even under these unique circumstances, and so I put myself out there, and this is a challenge to all of my students in the middle school for you to do the same. Look up the list of virtues, grab a friend, and get here and do this. These morning gatherings are too important to not continue. So, in order to help me feel better, because I'm already a mess, let's breathe. And notice how far down my shoulders went. That's what you're trying to get to. Okay, one more. I'm going to actually roll my neck too. Okay, I feel a little bit better. Thanks, guys. Okay, so the virtue this month is diligence, and diligence is one of my favorite words and attributes to possess. So diligence simply means careful and persistent effort. There's a fly, nice production values. And it's really important because now is the time in your life, all of you who are listening to this, where you can begin to develop a work ethic based upon diligence. And I like to start with a quote always before I get to the book that I want to read. And I found a fabulous quote from one of my favorite, and I think one of the most important Americans in our history, and that is the one, the only, Abigail Adams. Now I know some of you Hamilton fans think you know her husband, right? John Adams, as King George likes to say. And basically everything they say in that long-winded musical about him is true. He was not well liked. He was obstinate. He was short. But the thing that John Adams had going for him was his wife. In fact, the greatest decision John Adams ever made was marrying Abigail. Why? Because he considered her his equal partner. He was an unsuccessful president, to be sure, but he was a successful vice president, ambassador, statesman, and of course, shaper and signer of the Declaration of Independence. He would have done none of those things without Abigail. She took care of the estate in Massachusetts while he was away. She took care of the education of their children, and obviously she did a pretty good job since one of their children went on to become a president in his own right. She did it all and would never have ever thought for a second that she was anything less. And this is the 18th century, guys. This is the time when women have no legal standing, no right to vote. They, upon getting married, have to take their husband's last name to demonstrate that they have become his property. So when Abigail Adams has something to say about diligence as it pertains to education, I listen. So here's what she wrote. She said, "Learning is not attained by chance. It must be sought for with ardor and diligence." And ardor is just an old-fashioned term for enthusiasm. So learning must be sought for with enthusiasm and careful and persistent effort. Ardor and diligence. Think about that. Think about all the ways that you can engage in something using diligence. And that's a beautiful segue into the book that I'm going to read for you today. You know, I like reading books. And this book is about a young man who didn't realize that he had talent, but he needed to marry it with diligence in order to be successful. This book has a very odd title, Salt in His Shoes. And it is about a boy who likes to play basketball. It's written by Dolores and Rosalind Jordan. I don't know if that name sounds familiar to you. Dolores is the mother of, and Rosalind is the sister to, Michael Jordan. And this is the true story of how he began to believe in himself to become a basketball player. And as you all know, he has now become the greatest basketball player in the history of that sport, and upon retirement, one of the most important athletic figures we have in our country right now. So here we go, salt in our shoes. Michael loved to play basketball. Every Saturday, he followed his older brothers, Larry and Ronnie, to the park, hoping that they would let him play. And if one of the guys who usually played with him didn't show, they always did. But there was one problem. His name was Mark, and he was the tallest boy on the court. "What's the matter, Mikey? Too short?" Mark flapped his arms in Michael's face. "Over here," shouted Larry. But when Michael threw the ball, Mark's long arms came out of nowhere and knocked the ball away. It flew into the hands of a player on Mark's team. He made the basket, and the game was over. Just like that. I think we all know Mark, don't we? I'm really sorry, guys. If I were taller, that wouldn't have happened. All the way home, Michael apologized, even though no one was mad at him. His oldest brother, Ronnie, tried to cheer him up. Look, little brother, you played good today. Don't worry. We'll win the next time. When they got home, Michael went into the kitchen where Mama was cooking dinner. He was still disappointed, and she could tell. You guys lost again today, huh? Michael nodded. He sat quietly for a minute, then said, Mama, how can I grow taller? Now, Mama knew the answer to a lot of questions, but this was a tough one. She thought for a moment as she sprinkled salt and pepper on the chicken she was making for dinner. Then she smiled, looked at Michael, and said, Salt. Salt? Michael looked at his mama. Salt in your shoes. We'll put salt in your shoes and say a prayer every night. Before you know it, you'll be taller. Salt in my shoes, Michael said quietly to himself. Surely Mama was teasing. He sat staring out of the window, trying to figure out how salt was going to help him grow. He noticed the rose bushes outside in Mama's garden. They had grown high along the fence, and roses of all colors were blooming on the vines. He thought to himself, I remember when Mama first planted those bushes. Michael's face lit up. If Mama knows how to make those rose bushes grow taller, then maybe she's right. Maybe salt in my shoes really will help me grow. Growing more excited, Michael twirled around and started asking lots of questions. Mama, how long will it take? How tall do you think I'll get? Smiling, Mama sat down next to him and explained, in order for this to work, the most important things you have to do are be patient and listen to what I tell you and say your prayers every night. Listening carefully, Michael shook his head. Okay, Mama, I'll be patient, but what do saying my prayers have to do with it? Everything, Mama replied, and she hugged him. Now go wash up and tell your brothers and sisters to get ready for dinner. Michael dashed out of the kitchen, almost knocking over his father, who was walking in. What's he up to now? Asked Daddy. Oh, the usual, laughed Mama. Chasing a dream. Later during dinner, Mama noticed that Michael was barely eating anything. He was already daydreaming about being taller. Michael, first things first, you won't grow if you don't eat, especially your vegetables, Mama said. But I'm not really hungry, he said. Raising her eyebrows, Mama gave him a stern look. Slowly, Michael picked up his fork and began to eat. Minutes later, his plate was clean and he was asking for more. That evening at bedtime, Michael set his favorite game shoes on the floor next to the growth chart hanging on the wall. Then he put on his pajamas, said his prayers, and jumped into bed. When Mama came in, Michael was fast asleep. By the look on his face, you could tell he was already playing basketball in his dreams. Standing by his bed, Mama sprinkled salt in his shoes. Then she prayed quietly over him, as she did all her children. Dear God, please help Michael to be the best he can be and to give his best in all that he does. And Lord, could you please just make him a little taller tomorrow than he is today? Thank you. Amen. After that night, Michael wore his favorite game shoes everywhere he went, and he stopped going to the park with his brothers on Saturdays. Instead, he stayed home and practiced. He wanted to grow a few more inches before he went back to the park. After 2 months of practicing and waiting patiently and praying, Michael stood next to the growth chart on his wall. Nothing. He hadn't grown an inch. He was disappointed, but he did not stop believing. I've just got to give it more time, like Mama said, Michael thought to himself, and that's what he did. 2 more months of practicing went by and still nothing. Now Michael was becoming a little sad. Not only had he not grown 1 inch, but he also missed playing basketball with Larry and Ronnie. Bet the only thing he didn't miss was being picked on by Mark. When next Saturday came, his brothers tried to get Michael to go with them to the park, but he wouldn't budge. Mama had begun to worry. When she saw Michael sitting alone on the steps, she said to Daddy, maybe you should go out and talk to him. So Daddy went out and sat with Michael. What's wrong, son? You haven't gone to the park with your brothers for a while now. Are you okay? Michael didn't say anything at first. Then he looked at Daddy and said, I thought I would be at least a few inches taller by now. I did everything Mama told me to do, but nothing's happened. Michael, why do you want to be taller? Daddy asked. If I were taller, I'd be a great player. I could help our team win, Michael answered. But you are a great player, son. You already have everything it takes to be a winner right in here. Daddy tapped Michael on his chest. Being taller may help you play a little better, but not as much as practice, determination, giving your best will. Those are the things that make you a real winner. Michael thought about what Daddy said for a minute. Then suddenly he jumped up and took off. Where are you going? Daddy yelled after him. I've got a game today. I'm late, Michael yelled back. When Michael reached the park, the game had started. He sat on the bench hoping he would get a chance to play, and he did. The game was almost over and the score was tied when John, one of the guys on Michael's team, fell and hurt himself. Here was Michael's chance. Michael joined his team in the huddle as they gathered on the sideline for a timeout. Okay, the game is tied. All we need is 1 point. Who wants to take the shot? Ronnie asked. He looked in Michael's direction. Feeling more confident than ever, Michael said, I'll do it. When the whistle blew and the game began again, Mark began to pick on Michael as usual. Still trying to play with the big boys, huh? Mark taunted. Michael paid him no attention. Taller or not, he had been practicing, and today he was determined to win. Larry threw the ball inbounds to Michael. Michael caught it, bounced it for a moment, took off running. As he approached Mark, Michael shifted to his right. Mark followed, but while he was still shifting, Michael spun to his left. He stepped behind Mark and shot. The ball arced far above his opponent's hands and fell silently through the hoop. 2 points, game was over. Michael's team had won. It was just as Michael had dreamed. When he realized what he had done, Michael took off running and didn't stop until he reached home. Bursting through the door, he shouted, I did it, Daddy, I did it. I shot right over the tall guy's head. We won the game. Running in behind him, Ronnie and Larry joined the celebration. That's right, little brother, you did it. You won the game for us. Michael remembered the look that Ronnie gave him during the last time out of the game and said, no, we won the game, but I was the star. They all laughed. After that day, Mama stopped putting salt in Michael's shoes, but Michael did not stop being patient and working hard. So that must be what made Michael grow up to be a 6'6" tall basketball superstar. And I hope that picture looks familiar because you can look that up on the internet, and that really is him eye level with the basketball rim. I hope you guys all figured out. It had nothing to do with salt. It had nothing to do with getting taller. It had everything to do with him understanding that hard work and persistence is what paid off. So I hope you guys think about ways that you can begin to develop that in your own routines. And I also hope that I see you guys up here moving forward to keep Morning Gathering going. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day.